Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something we've all experienced but maybe never fully understood: the hidden, incredibly fascinating psychological mechanics of human attraction. We're going to explore two very distinct sides of the social coin here. First, how you unconsciously broadcast your own magnetism, and second, how you decode the complex, subtle signals that other people send to you. So if you've ever felt like social dynamics are just this totally foreign language, well, you are definitely in the right place. Let's get into it. The source material hits us with a pretty powerful truth right out of the gate. Real magnetism isn't about being the loudest person in the room. We live in a world that constantly tells us we have to shout just to be seen, right? That we need to perform for attention. But the data, the actual psychology, tells us the exact opposite. True magnetism, it absolutely doesn't need a megaphone. It relies on something much, much more powerful. Think about the difference between being loud and being truly magnetic. Loud, predictable behavior, like that guy shouting over the music at a crowded party, sure, it grabs your immediate attention, but it rarely sustains it because there's just no mystery left to unravel. You already know the whole deal. On the flip side, having quiet power makes you grounded, but also pleasantly unpredictable. When you master your emotions and just move in silence, people actually feel your presence before you even say a single word.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We'll start by breaking down the myth of loudness. Then we'll master your quiet power and explore the dopamine trap. After that, we'll flip the script to decode the hidden signs of flirting, before wrapping it all up with the surface-level loop.
Starting right off with Section 1, the myth of loudness. Because we really need to rethink how we're presenting ourselves to the world.
Listen, the absolute first secret to unlocking your quiet power is getting your internal foundation right. You have got to stop chasing validation. Why? Because psychologically speaking, when you chase validation, you are sending out this massive subconscious signal to everyone around you that your self-worth is negotiable. You're basically saying your value is up for debate. But think about it. When you stop asking the room for permission to be valuable, when you're just comfortable existing in your own space without needing all eyes on you, boom, you instantly elevate your social standing.
Moving right along to Section 2, mastering your quiet power. Let's get into the actual mechanics of broadcasting this grounded energy. So the psychology of attraction points to 5 specific secrets of quiet power. We just talked about not chasing validation. But to really build that magnetic aura, we have to add selective privacy, intermittent reinforcement, an internal locus of control, and a purpose-driven pace. When you put all these together, you create this captivating mindset that commands attention, but never actually demands it.
Let's zoom in on selective privacy for a second. We exist in this era of massive oversharing, right? But true quiet power relies on limiting how much of yourself you put out there. By intentionally not broadcasting every single second of your life online, you protect your mystery. And psychologically, this triggers a chase instinct in other people. It literally makes your actual in-person presence feel like a hard-earned reward, instead of just something that's always available for public consumption.
And protecting that mystery naturally leads to what's called an internal locus of control. That basically means your happiness isn't riding on a roller coaster of notifications or other people's approval. You're the anchor. Combine that with a purpose-driven pace, where you aren't just acting on impulse, and you show people that you prioritize your own life direction over endless social distractions.
Which brings us to Section 3, the dopamine trap. This is the psychological engine running behind the scenes of all that quiet power.
You have to understand intermittent reinforcement. It's absolutely crucial. When you're calm and totally focused on your own goals, you become kind of unpredictable in how and when you give people your attention. And that unpredictability, it creates anticipation. It's actually a lot like the thrill of pulling a slot machine lever or getting a surprise gift. In the human brain, anticipation triggers a massive dopamine spike. So you aren't just interesting anymore. Psychologically, your presence becomes genuinely addictive.
It really operates as this simple 3-step sequence. First, you just maintain a calm energy. Second, you focus relentlessly on your own goals. And because you're doing those two things, you naturally arrive at step 3. You trigger a dopamine spike in others as they wait for your attention. You've actively created a dopamine trap, and you did it without ever acting impulsively yourself.
But hey, this brings up a brilliant question. Once you start putting out this magnetic energy, how on earth do you read what's coming back at you? Is she just being friendly, or is she actually testing your emotional intelligence?
Let's figure that out in Section 4, decoding the hidden signs. We're flipping the coin here to look at the subtle ways someone shows they're genuinely flirting with you. Look,
Flirting is so much more than just being nice. The source material hands us this amazing secret playbook of 6 highly specific, psychology-based signs that prove someone is testing the waters for a real connection. So, let's walk through exactly what each of these looks like in the real world.
First up, sensitivity, and this plays out in 2 really fascinating ways. The first is high interpersonal sensitivity. This means she's going to notice your microbehaviors, like tiny shifts in your tone of voice or your body language, and she'll use them to build a deeper connection with you. The second is high social sensitivity. Ever notice someone acting completely drained by the larger crowd at a party, but then suddenly they have this endless reservoir of energy when they're talking just to you? Yeah, that's exactly what this is.
Next, we've got associative integration. I know, it sounds like some heavy academic jargon, but it's really just the sign of a highly intelligent connection. If someone is genuinely flirting, they'll take random, seemingly disconnected ideas from your conversation and playfully weave them together to create totally new, shared insights. It's like calling back to a random inside joke you literally just made 10 minutes ago. They're actively using your interaction to build a private mental world that only the two of you share.
To round out these signs, you also want to watch for cognitive flexibility and psychological safety. See, sometimes she might challenge your traditions or your opinions, but she's not doing it to be rude, she's just testing your cognitive flexibility to see if your curiosity can keep up with hers. And, at the exact same time, she'll create psychological safety. She'll feel completely comfortable being her most authentic, maybe even her weirdest, quirkiest self around you, even if that exact same behavior would make her feel totally out of place in a different group.
Finally, we landed Section 5, the surface level loop. We've talked about projecting power and reading complex signals, but what's the actual endgame here? The endgame, the ultimate sign of deep psychological attraction, is meta-awareness. This is when the person you're talking to shows they fully recognize the mundane, repetitive loop of modern surface-level dating. They see the games, they know the scripts everyone else is following, and they actively signal to you that they want to skip all of that for something real with you. Mastering these cues, it isn't about learning how to play games. It's about recognizing when someone is trying to break free of those games right alongside you.
Ultimately, everything we've decoded today, from moving in silence and triggering a dopamine trap, all the way to reading associative integration, it's really meant for deep thinkers. This is for the people who genuinely want to understand the truth of social dynamics and real connection, rather than just settling for some shallow popularity contest.
So now that we've busted the myth of loudness and unlocked the reality of quiet power, I have to ask, are you ready to skip the surface level loop for something real? Seriously, think about how you can take these psychological insights and apply them to your own interactions today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it completely shifts the way you see your social world.